It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A. AskSCW is here answering your questions in the wrestling community straight after this. So welcome back to the channel. As always, going to be answering your questions on all things wrestling, WWE, AEW, NXT, much more will be coming up in this video. Some hot topics in the wrestling community on this particular episode. But if you want to be featured on the next episode, all you got to do is drop a question here in the comment section on YouTube. Leave the hashtag AskSCW with your question, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all are coming up on your screen right about now. But without further ado, let's get in with our first question this week. And it comes from Jamie Holmes asking, the teams for Survivor Series have recently been announced. Which team do you feel is the strongest? And if you could change one member for another, who would it be? Great way to kick off the episode this week, and like you say, it's kind of breaking news, a hot topic announced on Twitter on Saturday evening. Of course, that's in your UK time, perhaps Saturday afternoon in the States. WWE announced their Survivor Series teams for Raw and SmackDown for both the men's and women's matches. Now, I'm a bit disappointed there wasn't qualifying matches, but hey, we know who we're going to be seeing at Survivor Series representing each side. And for those who are unaware, let's go through those right now, and then I'll give my opinion on the teams and if I'd make any changes. So let's start off with the women's side, and you can see on Team Raw, we've got the captain Bianca Belair, we've got one half of the women's tag team champions Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan is there, we've got Carmella and Queen Zelina, and on SmackDown we've got Sasha Banks as the captain, who's also going to have Shayna Baszler, Shotzi, Natalya, and Aaliyah. So let's start with the Raw side then. To be honest, I think it's a quite strong looking lineup there. Bianca Belair seems, obvious there to be the captain of Team Raw at this point. She's been one of the main women in the women's division the entire year. Rhea Ripley is there without her tag team champion partner Nikki ASH, which is a bit of a surprise that she's not a part of this team, but I suppose you can't do a team without Rhea Ripley, and it does put in question, will both of them still be the women's tag team champions come Survivor Series? We talked last week about championships changing hands. Well, this championship can go on both shows. We don't have champions versus champions, and let's not forget on Raw this past week, Carmella and Queen Zelina won a match over the women's tag team champions, so I wouldn't be surprised if that put them in a championship match before Survivor Series and they were to win the gold. It is good to see that Queen Zelina is getting that push still past the Queen's Crown tournament that took place at Crown Jewel, because there is always that sort of thing with WWE where they give people the crown and all of a sudden they don't win matches. So I like that she is a part of this team. So in a way, I'm kind of happy for that sacrifice. And if you look at Liv Morgan, up and coming talent, I think that she's looking to be next in line to take on Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. So at this point for the team, it's well rounded, and it just goes to show that Raw actually does have some strength in depth in their women's division to leave out the sort of talents like Nikki ASH and of course Doudrop as well that isn't featured amongst the teams. But Raw for me is looking pretty solid. As for SmackDown, I mean, Sasha Banks, self-explanatory, the boss seems the right choice to be the leader of this group. Seems to have turned babyface as well, with Shotzi turning heel. There's a rivalry going on there, so interesting they've been put on the same team. That's going to be a fun dynamic to go into the story of this match. Shayna Baszler as well is been quite dominant as of late, picking up wins after win. Not seem to get the job done against Naomi, but Sonya Deville is making sure she gets through that. As well as that, we know as well that Natalya is there, which is probably a surprise to some, but a veteran, knows this sort of thing inside out. She's been in multiple of these Survivor Series matches, can almost be a great voice in amongst the matches to make sure that people keep their spots. So I think it's great that she's a part of this. And Aaliyah, which is probably a big surprise to many, because there are a number of talents that perhaps people would have said in place, and I think the first one that people will be talking about is Naomi. Now, I've seen that outcry on social media of why she's not a part of this Survivor Series team. Look, let's be honest here. If you're reading the story on SmackDown, Sonya Deville doesn't see her as worthy of representing the brand, for going for championships, even for having matches. She's only just put her back in the ring. It would seem a bit of a loophole in the storyline if Naomi was a part of this Survivor Series match. So I think a few people have missed the trick of what they're actually seeing on WWE TV. Is she one of the top talents that arguably should be a part of this match? Of course she should be, but there is a bigger story in place with that right now. So that's why she's not a part of this match, and I actually would keep her away from this match. match. But what I would say is there are two talents that perhaps could have filled the spot instead of Aaliyah. The first one being Xia Li. Now, she's coming soon. We're not sure how soon it will be to WWE, but hey, a debut at Survivor Series could be fun. We've had a few big-time superstars, some of the biggest names debut at Survivor Series before, and I'm not talking about the gobbledygooker, I'm talking about The Undertaker, The Rock. So, I mean, could Xia Li be someone that could have filled that spot? Would have been fun to see, but sadly not to be. But the one I would have put in the place of Aaliyah would have been Toni Storm. I think she's one of the best female wrestlers in and amongst that company. I would love to have seen her get the opportunity, but WWE just don't seem to know what to do with Toni Storm, and that's really a shame. So, yeah, she's not a part of this match, but that's the one change I would have made to this Women's Survivor Series match if I would have done overall. But personally, looking at the sets of teams, I'm happy with it. I think it'll be good time matches. Should hopefully build some storylines out of it. And yes, I'm ignoring people that were on the opposite brands not too long ago before the WWE draft, because you have to at this point. Yes, it does take away a little bit from the Raw vs SmackDown stuff, but I'll talk about that more later in the video. Let's go on to the men's Survivor Series matches then, shall we? And Team Raw, we have got Seth Rollins leading the way. We've got Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, and then we've got the Mysterios of Rey and Dominic. On Team SmackDown, we've got the captain, Drew McIntyre, Jeff Hardy, King Woods, King Xavier Woods, Sami Zayn, and Happy Corbin, which of course will be accompanied to the ring by Madcap Moss. Again, two very stacked teams. It's going to be a hell of a Survivor Series match, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to play out. But looking at the Raw side there, well, the first four names speak for themselves. Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Rey Mysterio. They were all part of this #1 contendership ladder match not too long ago on Raw. It kind of makes sense that all four of them would be in this match. Now, Dominic Mysterio is a key note here, because obviously there has been a friction with him and Rey for a little bit of time where it's it's niggling. It's not got to the point of, you know, where one's going to turn on the other. Could that happen in this Survivor Series match? It would be a good place to sort of make that sort of impact. So that could be the reason why Dominic Mysterio is there. In my personal opinion, with the releases this week, I can't wish for a Keith Lee or a Karrion Kross in this place. We know Damian Priest is going to be in a champion versus champion match elsewhere in the evening. The only other name that could come to mind for me would be Bobby Lashley to take that spot. Now, Lashley hasn't been on TV since Crown Jewel, perhaps selling off what's meant to be injuries after Goldberg, perhaps. That could be why he's not part of things right now. I would have liked to have seen Lashley in this spot, but it is what it is. As for the SmackDown side, again, it looks quite a stacked lineup. I mean, Drew McIntyre is in place there. Makes perfect sense, and arguably could be a survivor for the SmackDown side should they go on to win the match. I think King Woods being in it is great again. As I said, it's good to see the King of the Ring get a push, and I do think after this past week that King Woods is going to go into a singles program with Roman Reigns going forward. Maybe that even could culminate at the Day 1 pay-per-view that takes place on the 1st of January. And this would explain as well perhaps why Kofi Kingston isn't in amongst this lineup as well, because he was taken out by the Usos at the end of that match. So perhaps he will be selling an injury for an angle for the next number of weeks, which would rule him out of the Survivor Series spot. For me, looking at it, if Happy Corbin's here, it means he's not going to win the Intercontinental Championship from Shinsuke Nakamura, which means we should get Nakamura versus Priest. I'm very much down for that at this point. And Sami Zayn and Jeff Hardy are probably the two that I'm most surprised about being in the team, but I'm very happy to see Sami Zayn in this spot despite the contract situation. Sami Zayn is a very underrated talent, and I think that he would be great in amongst the Survivor Series because he kind of wants to see himself as the leader, so this could be quite fun to watch play out on WWE TV for the next number of weeks. Jeff Hardy as well is a veteran, knows what he's doing in the ring, great high flying ability, so it would be good to see him in that spot, but probably would be the one I would trade of anybody from this match. And there's a couple of people that could have filled that spot. Ricochet could have been one of them, especially after a very impressive performance this week on SmackDown with the high flying ability as well that Ricochet does possess. Will kind of transition quite well into that Jeff Hardy sort of role onto the team. But another one I think many would be crying out for would be Sheamus, because, well, the Celtic Warrior, you know, would be great in the spot. He's had an incredible year as well. And to see him on the same team as Drew McIntyre as well could have brought out some interesting storytelling, would actually get on for the match, would they turn on one another. So yeah, there could have been an interesting dynamic with that as well. But overall, like I say, I'm very happy with how the team's been played out. I would have preferred to have seen qualifying matches, I won't lie. I prefer that sort of method rather than just seeing people announced willy-nilly on social media, not even announced on the shows. But hey, maybe the build starts here for Survivor Series when it comes comes to the Raw versus SmackDown stuff, and maybe we'll get some interesting television going over the next number of weeks. I do understand perhaps WWE's position, because with the championships and stuff coming off a crown jewel, and as well as that also having the UK tour going on with the Raw brand, maybe they found it difficult with the invasion stuff, and that's why they perhaps held things off a little bit. But hey, now there's no excuses going forward. We've got a couple of weeks of Survivor Series. Let's really make it mean something over the next few shows of Raw and SmackDown. Austin Whitley with our next question now. Very weak build for Survivor Series. Should they scrap the Raw versus SmackDown concept? Well, as we said at the end of the last question, you certainly can make a case and argument for dropping Raw versus SmackDown going forward. And one that I haven't mentioned, which is probably the most obvious, is the WWE draft. Of course, that's taking place in October. A number of superstars in these Survivor Series matches were on the opposite show. When you look at the men's match in particular, 8 of the superstars out of 10 were on the opposite brand just a few weeks prior to this match being made, and obviously the draft taking place as well. Why would they want to represent the show that they're on? So there is that case and argument that the draft needs to move to a different point of the year, or this concept needs to move to a different point in the year. But as well, looking at Raw and SmackDown as it's played with television over the last number of weeks, there has been some storylines that have played out and been building nicely that you could turn around and say, well, perhaps there's more of an argument to want to see that on pay-per-view instead of what we're getting with Raw versus SmackDown, since we can't really get the invasion concepts. With Raw's being overseas in the UK, that kind of rules things out for a week of why we can't do invasions. But now we've got 2 weeks to build for it now. Hopefully WWE will make it memorable. You've only got to look to AEW this past week and Rampage. Eddie Kingston and CM Punk. One promo, one moment, one short spell of television, and everyone is eating out the palm of their hands, and they want to see what's going to happen in that match on pay-per-view. Now, do I have faith in WWE to book that over the next couple of weeks? Not necessarily, but they have the ability to do so, and if they can give us a compelling story of why Raw and SmackDown should mean something, our feelings and concept of this could change very, very quickly. But the question I put to you is, would you prefer to see Raw versus SmackDown, the matches we've got here, those traditional Survivor Series matches? We've got Big E versus Roman Reigns, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. We've got RK Bro versus the Usos, which I think would be an awesome tag team match, by the way, and Damian Priest versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Or would you prefer a card that's got Big E versus Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns versus King Woods? We could perhaps, I don't even know what the Usos would necessarily do, but you probably got RK Bro against the Dirty Dogs, and maybe a returning AJ Styles and Omos or something like that. We'll have to wait and see how they'd played it out. AJ Styles being off of TV, one reason why I have not mentioned him actually earlier on in this video, because I'd love to have seen him a part of the Survivor Series, my favourite wrestler right now, so always happy to see him perform. But yeah, when you look at those two concepts, I would say that I do want to see the Raw versus SmackDown matches more. So it's interesting because WWE are not really told that story to us, but if they added the story to it, that could be quite interesting, and that's what could be really fun as well with Roman Reigns and Xavier Woods, just to twist that back into Survivor Series. They could use that this week. Kofi being taken out by the Bloodline. Big E could say something about this on Raw, how he's annoyed with Roman Reigns and how he's going to take out of him on the pay-per-view. Then seeing King Woods get the beat down on SmackDown as well, being taken out again by the Bloodline. That could make a compelling story of how you can do the cross-brand sort of stuff going on. So there are ways that WWE can make this interesting, and I hope that WWE takes the opportunity with the remaining shows we have now between now and the Survivor Series. Next question comes from Supersonic X. Do you think Liv Morgan could beat Becky for the Raw Women's title? And if not, then who? Alexa Bliss, Bayley, or Asuka? As pleased as I am to see Liv Morgan potentially get an opportunity to go against Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship, there's no way that she's taking the belt for Becky at this particular time. She's just not ready. She's definitely improving in ring. She's got momentum behind her, but Becky Lynch is on a completely different level right now. So there's no way that Becky will be dropping the championship to Liv Morgan anytime soon, especially if a program with them two is going to start around the Survivor Series. You're probably thinking it's going to happen on a Raw, this title match, or at the latest probably the day one-ish pay-per-view, and I don't see Becky Lynch dropping that championship between now and WrestleMania. And I would have said I think Bianca Belair would be the one to take over her, but of course that program looks to be sort of finished for the time being. Maybe Bianca gets included in a triple threat match at WrestleMania or something like that. But look at the names you mentioned there. Alexa Bliss would be interesting. Be interested in the dynamic, how she'll be brought back to TV. But again, I'm not sure she would be the one. I don't think Asuka would be the one. They have great chemistry, a great story that could be told as well. The fact that Becky gave the Raw Women's Championship to Asuka when she went off to be a mum, so that could be a fun story to see play out. But the one that really intrigues me the most that you said there is Bayley. Bayley leaving at the time she did, she's been away for a long time. She's rumoured recovery ahead of schedule, according to Tom Colohue. So let's see if she does come back ahead, and say she comes back at the Royal Rumble, comes in like number 27, 28, 29, wins the entire Royal Rumble, and we get Bayley, who arguably could come back as a babyface, because I think fans would miss her that much, and could, you know, to get that pop in that moment, to have Bayley versus Becky Lynch, a program we've not really had as well on Raw or SmackDown over the years that I can go back and think of. I think that would be a really interesting WrestleMania match, and yeah, for me right now, I would say Bayley would be the one I predict that would take the belt off of Becky Lynch further down the line. But to be honest, I'm really looking forward to seeing Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan, to go back onto that. I think it's a great opportunity for Liv to get more experience, to work in amongst with, you know, up at this point of the season, veteran and Becky Lynch, to work around in a championship program. This will put in good stead for when she is ready, which could be, what, another 6-12 months down the line. So yeah, this is great booking. It's good to see that a bit of favours being put in Liv Morgan, and of course being in the Survivor Series as well, it ticks a lot of the boxes. So I hope that it'll be a good showing, if nothing else. Next question comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo, asking what my thoughts were of Ricochet's first impressions on SmackDown, good or bad, and will it lead to a push in the near future? Really good question, this one, and I mean, obviously a push in the near future, not a push to the Survivor Series. He did make the lineup of the teams there, but what I would say is that Ricochet had a good stand-up performance, what you should get, especially in a losing effort against Drew McIntyre on SmackDown. Drew kind of put him over after the match, saying a good effort. You know, Ricochet coming out, making a statement as well on the microphone, which probably arguably his best promo work in WWE, giving Drew as well the big slap, saying that he's not going to just sit back and wait. The finish of the match as well, that moonsault into the Claymore. They couldn't really use that clip again of him and Adam Cole from Brooklyn, so they sort of had to make that happen again. But the way they did it on SmackDown, it was pretty awesome to see, and it put over Drew McIntyre big. I hope that some push will come from it. But what I would say is it good or bad, this performance this past week on SmackDown? It was a lot of good. It was arguably the best thing on SmackDown to watch this week. So for me, I'm hoping it's going to lead to good things going forward in the future for Ricochet. Definitely in and around the mid card would be nice to see. Of course, Shin right now is the Intercontinental Champion, so face versus face they can do, but it's probably unlikely in the foreseeable future. But I would say that when Shinsuke does drop the IC title to a heel, I think Ricochet gets himself in and around that championship program. So yeah, fingers crossed it will lead to good things going ahead for Ricochet, and goodness, he deserves it. Heck of a talent in WWE. Skate uphill with our next questions now. Maybe a bit early, but who would be your ideal picks to win each Royal Rumble match? It's never too early to speculate about a Royal Rumble match. Loving this question, and yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities that you could go with in WWE right now, particularly on the women's side, but I would say my ideal choice for the men, definitely probably outside the box choice as well for people, but I would go with Damian Priest, just because I think Damian Priest has had an unbelievable year in WWE. He's doing great things. Tweaks are done to his character at the right time as well. He doesn't get stale at any point, and it always seems to take him to another level up as well. So Damian Priest is going in the right direction. If you were to get him to win the Royal Rumble match as well, and particularly say he was going after Seth Rollins for the championship at WrestleMania, or he wants to go against Roman Reigns, which arguably I think would be the bigger match, and match I'd be more compelled to see. If you have Damian Priest come at WrestleMania for the second year in a row with Bad Bunny, but this time in a main event match, I just feel to myself, and of course Bad Bunny would be at ringside this time, even in defeat against the Roman Reigns, I think Damian Priest would come over as a megastar. I think just you've got a potential here to really make something of Damian Priest in the company, because in a company right now that is desperate to find faces that can be main eventers, someone that can carry the company going forward, Damian Priest is doing a fantastic job in WWE. They've done a great job in booking him as well. We spend all the time criticising WWE of how they book things wrong. With Damian Priest, they are booking things right. They had the Bad Bunny stuff going into WrestleMania. Yes, the Miz and Morrison stuff continued on afterwards, got a little bit stale, but he's had a great United States Championship run. He's defeated the likes of Sheamus and Drew McIntyre clean, even in a triple threat match at some point. So yeah, it's all going good for Damian Priest, so he would be my personal pick if I was getting to pick someone to win the men's Royal Rumble match. As for the women, it's a bit more wide open. Like I said in the last question, for someone like a Liv Morgan, it'd be great to get in that position, but I do think Bayley, if she can come back ahead of schedule and win the Royal Rumble match and get a match against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, that would be pretty awesome to see. Even if it was a triple threat match with them two and Bianca Belair, that would be an amazing match to see. So for me, Bayley would be my #1 top pick, but at the same time, Alexa Bliss is yet to come back. That would be quite cool to see see her come back in because she was in the championship picture when she left, and of course if there's some involvement with the character, that could be interesting to see. But one that is currently on WWE TV would be Naomi, because she would overcome the odds. Imagine with the storyline with Sonya Deville of saying she's not good enough to be on SmackDown, not good enough to represent the Survivor Series, putting her in matches and then saying, no, you've not won them, and making sure that she loses them. What if she comes into the Royal Rumble match at like an early stage? Now, we've seen this play out last year, or this year currently still, with the number 1 and number 3 winning the Rumble. But say Naomi comes in at an early number, gets herself to the end and wins the Royal Rumble, overcomes all the odds. It's a great story that plays out, and of course at that point Naomi can't be denied that championship match at a WrestleMania. So that would be a really good fulfilling storyline if that was to play out, and that would then give the reward to all the to Naomi herself, all the fans that are angry on Twitter saying that Naomi deserves better. And it was very key that Pat McAfee said Naomi deserves better on commentary this week on SmackDown. I think that was said for a very specific reason. I think good things will be coming in Naomi's future, and this storyline is going to work us to that direction. They know fans care enough in what Naomi is doing, which is why we're seeing her get the rough end of everything right now. It's why she's left off the Survivor Series. So she could be someone that actually really could win the Royal Rumble come January. Wrestling by Waldridge of our next question now. Now that we've had time to digest the feel of NXT 2.0, do you prefer it to the old NXT? For him, it's a tough call, but he loves the characters and the freshness of 2.0. Which is better, NXT or NXT 2.0? What a difficult question to be asked, and it all depends really what you want to take from watching an NXT show. Are you looking for the 5-star classics? Are you looking for the NXT takeovers of what you've got of the NXT of old? Are you looking for indie stars to come in and make your show better? Or are you looking for NXT to build stars from the ground up? Superstars that are meant to go from NXT to Raw and SmackDown to headline a WrestleMania. Have enough of them happen from NXT 1 to 2. Do we prefer longer matches? Do we prefer squash matches? What is the style that works better? Do we prefer black and gold, or do you prefer unicorns and rainbows? It all depends really what you're kind of looking to take out from the show. Now, for myself personally, from a TV viewing experience, both have their benefits. I enjoy both, but it's what I want to take out of it. And this is why I kind of feel that WWE, in my opinion, should have looked to do something different if they were going to go with this NXT 2.0, because NXT itself had become a brand. Now, what the brand was meant to represent, I would argue wasn't necessarily working. It was great as working in like an indie promotion, almost like a Ring of Honor style thing, small arenas giving us great matches with the top indie talent in the world, but it wasn't giving people that Vince McMahon wanted to make headliners for Raw and SmackDown and then future main events for a WrestleMania. There wasn't the same sort of characters given out. It was more focused on in-ring wrestling than it was necessarily on story. The old style of NXT was more simple but effective style booking, where it feels like with Vince McMahon of what he wants to do with Raw and SmackDown, wants to have bigger, more out there characters with wild sort of storylines that you could get on a Raw and a SmackDown. So that's where I think they've kind of disconnected with NXT, because it hasn't built up the stars that they wanted, even though in many people's opinions the wrestlers they've been given have been definitely good enough to have as a Raw and SmackDown competitor, and perhaps were over enough in NXT that they were hopefully should have been pushed the same and maybe could have had a shot at getting that WrestleMania spot. That wasn't necessarily what Vince McMahon wanted, and it's not what we've gained. If you look at your champions that have been getting over the most, they're all from the early days of NXT. How many from the last sort of 5-6 years have gone to Raw and SmackDown and become a big time deal? I haven't really seen much of it. We're still relying on Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, who were called up in 2012, the very early style of NXT. Big E was the second ever NXT champion. Yes, it's taken nearly 10 years for him to become a champion, but we're relying on those people right now rather than people that have been called up in recent terms. In fact, most of them that have been called up recently, I mean, you look at Keith Lee's and Karrion Kross's, the most recent champions, Adam Cole, they're not with the company anymore. They're all well, 2 of them have been released this week, and one of them is elsewhere, who is your longest reigning NXT champion of all time. If you look on the women's side of things, we're still relying on the 4 horsewomen, which, let's be fair, 3 of them got called up in 2015, the other one in 2016. Since, yes, women get called up, but they're not pushed to the same degree. Bianca Belair is probably one of the few that has stood out amongst that over time. You could argue Asuka as well, but that's still going back nearly 5 years. So what does WWE do? And for me, that's why I argue is this new NXT better, because it clearly has more of Vince McMahon's fingerprints over it to book these sort of younger, fresher stars, because we've not got people that are coming in that are 15, 20-year veterans to NXT that are going to put on great matches, but their shelf life as well coming to Raw and SmackDown won't be as long as if you sort of bring in someone that's in their mid-20s. It's something that's an argument made with AEW. You've got that sort of the pillars of the future with the MJF, the Darby Allin, the Jungle Boys, the Sammy Guevaras. Those people have got 15, 20 years to build themselves, get to be top main eventers, become global stars, hopefully in and amongst that company. Where with NXT, now we're seeing these young stars coming through, given opportunity much earlier, and we've got these, crazy all over the place characters as well, and characters stand out. Let's be fair, you remember a character much more, and it gives you a lot more creativity of what to do with a character in and amongst WWE storytelling. If you have someone that's just got their name and they're great in ring, that's fantastic. But let's take a Tony D'Angelo, for example, the Italian mobster we've got in NXT. All of a sudden, these fun little skits we're seeing with someone in a car boot, or coming on to Lash Legend and the producer's been beaten up by him and obviously knows all about his family and stuff like that. There's a lot of fun that you can have with that, and that kind of can transition onto Raw and SmackDown. Those characters can really get over in the long run. So it all depends what you're looking to get out from it. So which is better? And to give my opinion of what I think is better, if you're going from an overall television product, I would say that I enjoyed NXT 1 a lot more for its in-ring stuff, and of course when you look at the Gargano versus Ciampa programs and stuff like that, the Undisputed Era, enjoyed all of that so much. But when you look at what NXT was supposed to represent, which is building stars for the future WrestleMania main eventers, potentially they're going to find that in amongst this. There's going to be a load of people that are going to fall by the wayside as well, just like the last NXT. It's not going to work out for everybody. But if you look at sort of like the Tony D'Angelos, the Bron Breakers, people that can stand out, and Von Wagner, even though the name is terrible, the in-ring performance he had with his NXT Championship match that he had on his debut and how he's done since has been pretty solid. So I look and say that they have got potential stars for the future. So I think when you look at this, it's still too early really to tell. I think we're going to need a good couple of years to say which is actually better. And if they do produce stars that can go onto the main events of WrestleManias and stuff like that, we can turn around and say NXT 2.0 is better. I think for character development and what they're looking for in NXT, I think in time it will prove to be better. What I will say is with NXT, the other NXT of what it was, I did enjoy that a lot more because of the wrestling style of it. I felt myself I was gripped to what they were doing each and every week with Triple H's vision and style of programming. It just didn't transition each time someone was called up to Raw or SmackDown, because then they were in the hands of Vince McMahon and they weren't what Vince wanted. If it had been my personal opinion, I think NXT should have stayed as it was, and we should have had this NXT 2.0 as NXT Evolve. I think that could have been the way to do it. They purchased Evolve, and I think that's how we could have kept both, and it could have satisfied everybody's needs, because then that way you can take people from Evolve, perhaps put them into NXT if you want, or those people get hot shot to an NXT Raw or SmackDown. It becomes like the big three from that point. But it's impossible to answer which one is better, but for myself personally at this point, I still prefer NXT 1. There was some stuff I thought I couldn't miss off of that, where with squash matches here, I think sometimes bits are skippable and not every character connects. But the thing is though, they're taking chances with this NXT 2.0, and that's what I think is what's really good about it, because some things are going to hit, and when they hit with these characters, they're going to hit big. Mike at Tanahab's Mike with our next questions for us now says Triple H can't be happy with these cuts this week, especially with some stars he made into superstars, only for Vince to ruin it and NXT. Do you think that one day Triple H gets fed up and starts his own promotion, and if so, he would be successful? I also have to give a shout out as well to Corey Beatty, who also asked a similar question there, saying that he should rebel and start his own promotion that's not NXT. Well, there has to be frustration from Triple H's side. I mean, it's been his baby, NXT. Obviously, we went through the game show phase, but less said about that, the better. But what we've had from 2012 up until 2021, before it turned to NXT 2.0, that was Triple H's baby. It was his way of building new stars and having his vision of how to build a wrestling promotion. And, it connected with a portion of the audience. I mean, arguably you would say that looking at NXT once it went to television, its audience isn't as big as what a Raw and SmackDown is, but certainly there was a portion of the audience that were crying out for this style of wrestling. And I think Triple H, there is an argument that he could get fed up, because all those people that he did make into stars, like you said, either a number of them have been called up to Raw and SmackDown, have not worked out, have been changed dramatically, like a Karrion Kross or a Keith Lee, and end up being released less than a year later. Or you have superstars like, you know, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, who don't want to be called up to Raw and SmackDown. You've even got people like Ember Moon, who was in NXT, went to Raw and SmackDown, and wanted to go back to NXT. It's not uncommon that superstars have asked to go back to where they came from. And that's not meant to be the idea, again, of what NXT is supposed to represent. It's supposed to be a feeder brand of starting someone up and then moving them to Raw and SmackDown. That's supposed to be the dream. That's supposed to be the destination. But Triple H has made this to a point where some wrestlers feel that was the destination. That's where they want to be. So is there a potential he could get fed up at some point? I don't actually know the answer to that one. I mean, it would seem very crazy to feel that Triple H would break away from WWE and smash and go into like AEW, but or starting his own promotion. But what I would say is there is so many free agents out there right now, and of course so many people that Triple H would say, well, I helped make this person to a star. If he had the resources to do this and start a promotion, why not? I'm pretty sure it would do pretty well. I'm pretty sure it'd at least be easily, quite quickly, the third biggest promotion in wrestling. Maybe arguably could compete with the second, who knows. But yeah, it would be interesting if a day and time ever happened with that. But there are so many free agents, especially with WWE and the releases this week. It's just crazy to see once again. I do have a video on the channel giving my reactions to that and where I think they'll be going next. Also done that as well with Ring of Honor also, and thanks to everyone that's been checking that video out. Also, it's hit 10,000 views, which I'm over the moon about. Never imagined that in my wildest dreams. So thanks to everybody that's checked out and has been supporting the channel and helping me get to this point where videos can actually reach out like that. We're actually getting to the goal of where we want to see this channel go to. But going back into the context of what it is, with all these stars, these free agents out there, if someone wanted to make a promotion right now, it's a great time to do so. And if it's someone of name value like a Triple H that's fed up with Vince McMahon and wants to break away and start his own thing, goodness, you can see some legs on it. So I never say never, I suppose is what I'd say, but it's also one of those that, again, I would believe it when I see it. Last question this week coming from Beyond the Ring podcast: is Kenny Omega going to lose the AEW World Championship against Hangman Adam Page? That's what most of the people are hoping, but do you see Page suffering defeat or somebody costing him the match? Could you imagine if somebody cost him the match next weekend? The heat would be nuclear on that wrestler. There could be an argument of a reason why to do it, but here's what I'm gonna say. The time is now. The story of Hangman Adam Page has been going for the best part of 2 years now, and has been beautifully written from start to finish. The opportunity to become the first ever AEW World Champion. He kind of put that pressure on himself that he would do it, to only fall short to Chris Jericho, to then sort of losing that confidence to the point that he had to become a tag team wrestler with Kenny Omega, a makeshift tag team, 2 single stars going through and besting what's meant to be the best tag team division in the world, to the point that when they lost those championships, at the same time as well, Hangman lost his friends. He turned to the drink as well, which became, you know, got himself majorly over as well. But Kenny Omega wanted the singles stuff. He wasn't ready to be that singles guy on his own. He went and tried his hand at the World Eliminator Tournament, losing in the final to Kenny Omega. And we see at this point Kenny Omega's gone on to superstardom as the world champion for nearly a year. And we've seen Hangman Adam Page has been unable to trust anybody, not being able to, you know, relate to even people like the Dark Order who have believed in him throughout his journey. So it's been beautifully told, to the point now Hangman, you know, has said to himself, I'm going to try and get back in this picture. It then fell short. Also, once again, we lost his opportunity, to the point he took time off then to become a dad. He then come back here and he's won the Casino Ladder match, and he's called his shot here for Full Gear 2021, which will be a full calendar year also since he lost that world title eliminator final against Kenny Omega. So for me, the time is now. While you sort of feel invested in that character, invested in that story, to get that feel-good moment, that big pop that you can get, I don't think you can get a louder and bigger pop than this moment at Full Gear for Hangman Adam Page to win the championship. So in my opinion, he should win it at this event. But yeah, if they were to do it, it could be great for that sort of heat that you can give that superstar if they were to cost him the opportunity. But if he loses just outright the match, then there does come an argument then, when do fans start giving up on the story of Hangman Adam Page? Is it something we've rode along for the journey and it's just not going to give us where we want to get off to at the destination, and that would be a real shame. We've seen it happen with superstars in the past. WWE have been famous for it. I would say Dolph Ziggler would be a prime example. Someone, yes, that's been a world champion, but should have been a full-on main eventer. Fans were invested, fans were behind him, but WWE kept giving us reasons to stop caring, and now he's in a tag team with Bobby Roode or Robert Roode, whichever you prefer, and arguably another superstar that should be in and around that top area of the main event picture, but yet seem to not really care about what they're doing because WWE haven't given us that reason to for many years. And when we did care about Ziggler, time after time they kept knocking him down, and fans, you know, each and every time just stop caring, and we don't want that for Hangman Adam Page. I think it's the right place at the right time. Full Gear is where they should make him World Heavyweight Champion, in my opinion. But that's my opinion anyway. But what I will be saying is AEW Full Gear predictions will be dropping on the channel in the week. So yeah, my opinion is one thing, but prediction, I guess, is another. So make sure to check out my predictions video for that and all the card of Full Gear 2021. I'll be dropping this week on SCW. But please like, share and subscribe, and drop a comment here on any of the topics discussed on this video. I look forward to interacting with you. If you've got a question as well, then leave the hashtag AskSCW with that question. I know to include it in the next episode and also give you a shout out. But thank you everyone that's been watching as well. Hope you enjoyed the episode as always. It's been a lot of fun to record. Hope you have yourselves a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week, and yeah, check out these videos on the side screen right now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time here on YouTube. See you soon.